Hey guys, welcome back to Cats, Tea, and Me. I'm Diane, and I'm just here to share my nuggets of knowledge. Before we learned how to look at something in order to draw with line shape relationship, and now we're going to move on to trying to do some three-dimensional shading with our pencil. We're going to start out slowly and work our way up to the big stuff. So when you can shade just with your number 2 pencil. That is perfectly fine. But you could have some drawing pencils. The B's, if you see that you have the B numbers on there, those are going to give you your darker shades. And your H's will give you your lighter shades. You can also do some shading with a mechanical pencil that has more of a wide tip. If you have a mechanical pencil that you use for writing, technically you can, but you have to be very careful because when you are shading, you want to use more of the volume of your pencil instead of the point of your pencil. So we're going to be shading from the side. So basically, whenever you shade, it really is all about the pressure. So when you draw, you hold your pencil this way and you draw whatever it is that you want to draw, okay? But with shading, you want to use the wide part of the pencil. You don't want the point. So you're going to hold it more this way so that you can get the wide of the pencil. And then you're going to use your finger for pressure. So when you want the lighter shades, less pressure. And then as you want darker shades, you start pressing harder with your finger, and that gets you your darker shades, like that, okay? So everything, if you want light to pop, you have to have dark behind it. You can't have light without the dark. You can't have dark without the light. You need them both. A lot of times I see that people are afraid to put too much dark in. That's fine to start out slow. But whenever you find that your drawing is still falling flat, even though you have some shading in there, it is because you didn't go dark enough in the deepest recesses. And where you want to go dark is as objects go back into space. So let's say we have this cup here. It's coming back into space along the sides. It's popping out at us in the center. So as it goes back into space, it should get darker, signifying it's going into shadow. And as it pops out at us, it should get lighter, signifies that it's coming out of the shadows. Now that is just a rule so that you understand where it's coming from. But however, it's going to depend on your light source, okay? So we'll put that picture aside because we'll do that one later. So if I have this circle that I drew and I want to make it into a ball, I'm going to start at the edge and I'm going to want my darker area around the edge. So I'm pressing pretty hard. And notice that I'm going kind of slow, but do you see how whenever I use the side of the pencil, how it gives me more of a grainy effect instead of a line effect? And then as I'm starting to come out, I just leave up on the pressure and get lighter. So a ball is pretty easy to practice with. I got a lot of pressure here. And I'm purposefully not going too far in with the pencil so that we have room to add more if needed. It's always better to not have as dark as you need or as much shadow as you need. Now, if you were using a regular, the tip of your pencil, you would see a lot of lines and you wouldn't be able to seamlessly add these sections in. So it's best if you don't go as dark as you think you should go to begin with. And then that way, because it's always easier to add more dark than it is to try to erase the dark out. However, in saying that, a lot of times people are too afraid to put dark in, and then their circle falls very flat. It just looks like a circle instead of a ball. So you can see the start, how it's starting to go back into space. And then you can take your blender, you can use your finger, you can use a Q-tip, you can use an art blender. But if you just blend these together a little bit in the shape, notice I'm going in the shape of the circle. Don't make lines in a circle. You want to make your rounded edges. And you're just taking all of that pencil lead that you laid down and you're smoothing that all up and around. Now this falls a little flat in here because we have too much of a light area. So I'm just going to go back in. You just go back in, and I'm doing this all with a regular number 2 pencil. Like I said, if you have additional drawing pencils, you would want the ones that have a B on it in order for the darker areas. So I'm going in. You can see I'm starting to add a little bit more dark, going with the shape of the ball. And that is because there was too much light and not enough shadow, not enough dark. So if you find that your drawings are falling flat, even though you do put some shading into it, it is because you don't have enough of the dark to make the light pop. Okay, now you can see that we don't have near as much white space, and I'm just blending this so it doesn't look so like not congealed together. Okay, so now you can see from previously all of that light space was still making it look too flat. But once we went in, and you can even add a little bit darker if you wish to, carefully, just to make it pop just a little bit more. It's always safest to layer up, starting with your light areas and then layer up to your darker areas. So you see where we added a little bit more dark around this side. So that makes it look like this side is more in shadow than this side over here. And if you wanted to even give it a little bit of a pop, we could erase some of that out. And make that, blend that a little bit in there. And of course, I smeared it outside the line just a little. You can always clean that up, not a problem. So we have light coming this way, adding more darkness around to this way. Let's just get a little bit more of that. See what I'm saying? It's so much easier to add than to take away. So I just want to gently blend that line so it's not so crisp. Okay. So if we have our lightest here, we have our darkest here, we're going to know that we're going to cast a little bit of a shadow right there. Okay, so that's where we're going to go in with our even darker pencil. And again, I'm going with the shape of what I want. Now, if I take and I make this just a little bit lighter, right in between the ball and the shadow, just a little bit lighter. And then make that nice and dark right up against. I could pull this out. Using a Q-tip is actually very, very nice whenever you're dealing with making three-dimensional shading. So you can see that you have very dark around here where it's in shadow, very light up here, and you have a bit of your shadow coming out along here. So really, three-dimensional shading is all about trying to have a good play between dark and light. If you don't have enough dark, the light is not going to pop. Okay? That is super important. If you don't have enough dark, the light will not pop. Okay, so on to our pumpkin. So that's just a little bit of how you use pencils and how you want to use the side of the pencil. You want to use pencil pressure. We have this pumpkin here. Let me actually put that over there so I can see it. So whenever you're trying to do something more realistic and actually looking now with our terms that we were using, we know that as it's going back into space, it's going to be darker. As it's popping out at us, it's going to be lighter. So the edges would be darker where it's curving around at the bottom, the top, that's all going to be darker. And as it's popping out at us here in the middle, that would be lighter. We also have these lines in here that will be in a little bit of shadow. So would be easy to just take this for a good starting point. And remember, you have your blending tools that you can very easily blend this lead around. But remember, you have to lay the lead down in order for it to be there to blend. Okay? So in the picture, I see that it's darker at the top, and I'm always going with the curve of what I'm working with. And take your time. Going with the curve. Remember, it's always easier to add more darkness than to take it away. But each of these is a curved piece. Okay? because it's going back into shadow here in these lines. So as you can see, it's already starting to take shape as a three-dimensional piece. Always go with, and notice I just changed my direction on my pencil because we changed directions on the curve. So I can lay down a little bit more just to have some. Okay, so whenever you get your darks and your lights there, we can come in and we can start blending this together. You can see what a difference that makes when you start blending, but I'm always going with the curve. And I personally do not try to clean my blenders because I like that there is a buildup on it, that sometimes if I need to go in someplace just for a little bit of shadow, a very slight bit, I would just use the pencil dust that is already on the blender. Okay, so you can see how that is starting to take shape at the top, right? And remember, we can always go back in and add more. It's all about pencil pressure. A lot of pressure here, leaving off on the pressure. A lot of pressure, leaving off on the pressure. And we know that this side is farther away, so we don't want it to be as nice and stark white as this center. And we know that it's bending down underneath, so it's going to be darker down here. And always follow the curve, or if your pieces aren't curved, follow the line. Don't try to put straight lines in a curved area. But you can see whenever you use the side of your pencil, you can control it so much better and you cover a lot more area. Now this section here is not going to be as dark. So I'm really not pressing hard at all until I get down here to where it's going under. But still, that going under is not going to be as severe of a darkness as the other sides. And you notice that I just got darker here as I was going lighter here. That's all pencil pressure, pencil control. Now, are there ways that you could do this? Yes, absolutely there are. This is not the only way. I'm just letting you know how to get started with this. Like anything else, once you get started, it takes practice. So once you get that in, you can take your blender, your finger, a paper towel, your Q-tip, whatever you want, and you can blend that all up in, and we'll see where we need to add more shadow. And when blending, you're just following the curve of the object that you're working with. And just like with charcoal, if you don't have enough pencil lead laid down, you're not going to have enough to blend around, okay? Just remember that. And I always go with the curve because your pencil strokes and your blending strokes matter. That also helps to lead the eye where you want it to go. So if you want to see this as a curved piece, you have to blend it as a curved piece. Now I'm not going to, this is just a little tutorial on how to do this. It's going to take practice. It'll take me a good bit longer just to get this perfect. But I want you to know how to use your tools. Okay, so you can see it's starting to blend out nicely. So then I want more precision darkness in a few areas. So I'm coming in with my pencil point, getting a more crisp edge. And notice I can't get as light with this whenever I am working because it is so much smaller, not as broad. But notice how I'm fanning out my pencil strokes there, fanning them out in with the shape of what I'm dealing with here. And see how adding darkness really makes your light pop. So you're layering your darks to try to make your lights pop. So now whenever you come in and blend this a little bit, do you see how much more this is starting to pop compared to this side? So I can come in and I can blend out a little bit more of this dark on this side using the side of this pencil point here. Since this is the piece of the side of the pumpkin that is the farthest back, we don't want it to be so light that it takes away from the middle of the pumpkin, which is coming straight out at us. Okay, so see how that side looks like it is going farther back into space than the rest? And as we go, if you need to add more shadow in there, like if we needed to get this a little darker, we certainly can. But like I said, you should layer it. Don't try to do it all at once or you're going to frustrate yourself. This down here looks darker, so I'm going to just fill some of this in when I'm looking at the picture that I have here. This is darker up here. So I think that everyone can understand by doing this how you want to go with the flow of the piece, darker as it's going back into space and down into crevices, lighter as it's popping out. So we can see how this here looks like it's going back into space a lot more than this here. Okay, so we're still going to add some more shading in all of this. I don't need to take up too much more of your time. I will finish this up and then use it in our next video for adding a pop of color to it. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on how to create a three-dimensional looking object through pencil shading. Here was our ball that we started with. Remember, less pressure, lighter, more pressure, darker. As it goes back into space, it should get darker. As it comes out towards you, it should be lighter. And you should try to layer your shadows. Always go on the light side to begin with and then start putting in darker areas. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you very much for being here with me and listening to my little nuggets of knowledge. And go enjoy practicing your three-dimensional shading, and I will see you in the next.